Hello everyone, welcome to Two Real Reviews, two reviewers with no agenda. My name is Smeet Bass, and instead of reviewing a new film today, I am starting a new series called Silent Sunday, which will highlight films from the silent era. Did you know that approximately 70% of films made before 1930 are lost? I believe that silent films are a form of entertainment that doesn't get enough love, and that is distressing to me because they are just as entertaining as any modern movie. Some of them are more entertaining because they were made with what I view as more love for this quote unquote new art form that was being created. In some ways, they can be more expressionistic since they had so little to work with. I will talk about the history of silent films as I continue this, but I won't bore you with a long essay. I'm here to tell you if the movie is good or not, and to celebrate films as an art form. So today I am talking about two silent films. First film is Frankenstein from 1910. Yes, there was a Frankenstein film made before the 1931 all-time classic starring Boris Karloff. And you know what? It's pretty good. It was directed by J. Dowley, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and stars Mary Fuller, Augustus Phillips, and Charles Ogle as the monster. I've seen two versions of this film, one restored in 2012 and another restored by the Library of Congress in 2017. On a visual level, I prefer the 2017 version because, well, it just looks so clean. And not much film deterioration is going on, except for obvious stuff. But on an audio level, I do prefer the 2012 version because the music has a more haunting sound, adding to that creepy tone that the film is going for. It is a very, very, very loose adaptation of Mary Shelley's original story, so it omits many things such as Frankenstein not needing to stitch body parts together to create the monster. He just is in a room with a skeleton sitting down and mixes some kind of ingredients that he then puts into what I assume is a cauldron. Then he closes the door where it is, but it has a peephole. So he looks in every few seconds to see the monster being created. I love the way that they show the creation of the monster. It seems like they took a skeleton or a dummy model and burned it and then played the footage in reverse to make it look like a creation. I love that idea for 1910. The monster design is excellent. It looks like a weird amalgamation gone wrong, and I presume it was terrifying looking for people in 1910. There's a scene where Frankenstein is repulsed by the way the monster looks, and he retires to his room, and the monster comes through the wall and scares Frankenstein. I bet that scared moviegoers pretty well back then. I would have loved to have seen their reactions. The ending is completely different than the one in the book, so it doesn't get as dark as the novel or any of the subsequent films that came after it do, but it is still entertaining. There is some kind of mental duality going on with Frankenstein and the monster, which is a novel idea for how old this film is. There's a scene at the end of the movie with a mirror, and that's all I'll say to get about the duality. It seems that they filmed at 4 sets, or one set that was disguised as 4 locations, so there isn't much variety, but the movie is only about 13 minutes long, so it isn't a problem at all. I highly recommend seeing this film as it is an early example of what the horror genre would eventually become. And it's honestly a great gateway film into horror because it isn't so in your face like later horror films became. I like this film. I give it a B or 3.5 stars out of 4. And that's only because I know the story inside and out, so the ending being different upsets me as a huge fan of the novelization. The second film I want to talk about is Sherlock Jr., released in 1924, directed by and starring Buster Keaton. I'm sure most people know who Buster Keaton is, but if you don't, he was one of the biggest comedic stars of the silent era. He had a way with physical comedy that I didn't see until the rise of the likes of Jim Carrey. He's an icon for a reason. I went into Sherlock Jr. expecting a cute little mystery story, but what I got was some of the funniest physical comedy I have seen in a long time. A film projectionist, played by Keaton, has dreams of being a detective like Sherlock Holmes, until one day when he becomes part of a Sherlock Holmes-like mystery for real. That is such a great setup, and while I was a little disappointed that it didn't fully embrace the detective story, it does become such a wonderful comedy that I didn't care after a few minutes. There's a scene in this movie where the main character goes into the film he is the projectionist of, like a movie within a movie. And as the scenes in the movie within the movie change, so does what the main character is doing. He gets pushed out of the movie by a guy who's trying to romance a woman. Then when he goes back in, he will try to be sitting on something like a bench, and the scene transitions to a city road, so he has to get out of the way of moving traffic. But as he's walking away, he almost falls off a cliffside. It is completely genius. The physical comedy on display as we see what he has to go through next is spot on, and Keaton makes it work so well. It's the best scene in the entire film. Then the last act involves a chase scene, and it has some of the best stunt work maybe ever, or at least maybe that I've ever seen. He is sitting on the handlebars of a bicycle and having a discussion with the rider. Then he is riding the bicycle while sitting on its handlebars navigating traffic. This is so good. There's also something involving a car with no wheels. I won't say any more so you can enjoy it for yourself, but this movie just brings a huge smile to my face. Apparently, the legend goes that Buster Keaton broke his neck while filming this movie because he did his own stunts. But he is such a rock star, he didn't even know that he had hurt himself until 9 years later. That's how much he loved his work. He is a legend for a reason. I don't want anyone to think that these films are quote unquote schoolwork because they are so much more entertaining than that. Sherlock Jr. is only 45 minutes long, so you can watch both movies in less than an hour, and I recommend them both. They're both great films for children too because they can show an imagination that modern movies just can't anymore. I give Sherlock Jr. an A minus or 4 stars out of 4. I didn't go too deep into it because it is an experience I want everyone to enjoy. That's all for today's episode of Silent Sunday. If you like this, we also review new movies, so please subscribe and we'll be back soon with a new review, and I'll be back next Sunday with another episode of Silent Sunday. Until then, I am Ghost.